Hello, my friends. I happen to be in Dubai, and synchronistically, so does Shekhar Kapur. We are great friends, and have been for decades now, almost the same age. Both of us growing younger day by day, even though death is stalking us. Every time we look behind, death is closer. The Prince of Death is closer. We're all on death row. The only uncertainty is the method of execution and the length of reprieve. And we have these endless discussions. Shekhar exists in chaos, if you don't know, the basis of all creativity. You must know who he is. He's produced numerous amazing films, from Bandit Queen to Four Feathers to Elizabeth, and then now recently Will, and he's had an amazing show in Dubai that's been all over the world. Everybody's talking about this show called Why? Kyun? And the real reason we are having this conversation today is that none of this matters. None of this matters because we both struggle with the most fundamental questions of existence. Who are we? Where did we come from? Is there a meaning, purpose to our existence? And so we were walking down the corridor and Shekhar said, let's have a conversation about what else? Consciousness. So thanks for joining me, Shekhar. After this, pleasure. We can go have some dinner.
Yeah. So we have short time. So let me ask you, is consciousness definable? Let me ask you why I ask that, because what I've struggled with all the time is that the mind refuses to comprehend that which cannot be defined. And I wonder if that's the mind or the ego, but we'll come to that. So then, what is consciousness?
You know, I've been going to conferences on consciousness, science of consciousness, science and non-duality. And people struggle with the definition of consciousness, but I've finally decided that we need some kind of common language around consciousness. So let me give you a few current definitions of consciousness that people can't argue with. So one is, consciousness is that in which all experience occurs. This experience, where is it happening? You say, well, it's happening in Dubai. It's happening in this room, Deepak's room in the hotel. Others will say it's happening in the brain. But, you know, that's not where consciousness is. Now we get to the difficult part. Consciousness has no location, but it is that in which all experience occurs. This experience, you, me, your body, my body, we have Punacha sitting there, this furniture. Where is this experience being processed? So, you know, since I train in neuroscience, neuroscientists would say it's being processed in the brain. Say how? Photons are coming from here. They're entering the eyes. And by the way, when they go through the lens, if the photons contain information or image, then image, if it's in the eye, would be upside down. The eyes are about 9 centimeters by 10 centimeters. They're 11 centimeters apart approximately. So if the experience was occurring in my eyes, this visual experience, you should see two of me about this size, upside down and curved, because the retina is curved. Okay, but that's not, there's no image upside down in the retina. Others say, okay, from the retina, electricity is going to the brain, and the experience is happening in the brain. But you go inside my brain, there's no picture of Shekhar. And actually, there's no sound of Shekhar. This sound you're experiencing, there's no sound either. And if you put a knife through the brain, there is no pain either. The brain has no self-experience, zero. All it responds to is pH, electricity. There's no sound, there's no texture, there's no image, but we are having that experience. Where? And the simplest answer is in awareness or consciousness, because if there's no awareness, there's no experience. So consciousness is that in which all experience occurs, but it's also that in which all experience is known. We know that we are having the experience, and it's also that out of which all experience is made, which means consciousness is modifying itself into sound, into images, into sensations, and that's where experience occurs. Then you say, where is this consciousness? We can't find it because it has no form. If it had a form, you'd be able to see it. Just like the tooth can't bite itself, the eyes can't see itself, the consciousness can only know itself through experience. Because it has no form, it has no borders, it has to be infinite. So even though this experience seems to be in the body, it's being processed in the infinite. Okay. So a simpler definition would be consciousness is that in which all experience occurs. All experience occurs. Sound, touch, sight, taste, smell, sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, and creativity, imagination, any experience, whether we call it mental experience or physical experience, is being processed through sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts in an infinite, non-local, which means outside of space-time, domain, even though it appears to be here. Yeah. And that is timeless, where this experience is occurring. The experience itself is time-bound. It will be over soon.
So I will ask you a question based on the new telescope, the James Webb telescope.
Correct.
It's looking at the history of the universe.
Correct.
If that technology goes on leaping forward, it'll be looking into a place where, if science is correct, into where before the universe was born.
Correct.
So I asked somebody, we were talking, and we said, so what existed? Because according to science, there was no time before the Big Bang. I've never been able to understand, if they talk about it, why the Big Bang should have a central focus of where it started. And if it has no central focus, then it started everywhere. There's no other choice. But let's go back. When the telescope is that advanced that you can look at before the universe happened, is it looking at what? Consciousness? Just share. What is it looking at?
Okay. Now, this is a very fascinating question, because the James Webb telescope now is indicating that there are probably 2 trillion galaxies, 2 trillion, 700 sextillion stars, and uncountable trillions of planets, maybe 60 billion habitable planets in just the Milky Way galaxy. And the way they think of habitable planets is they look for something called the Goldilocks zone. If a planet is too close to its sun, too hot, burns out. So no life as we know it. Planet is too far from its sun, too cold, no life as we know it, the way we think of life. So given the Goldilocks zone, 60 billion planets, our planet is not even 1 grain of sand in all the beaches of our planet, of Karma Bhumi, or whatever you want to call planet Earth. Not even 1 grain of sand in all the beaches. On that is a species called Homo sapiens, you and me, which, on scale is not even the equivalent of COVID-19. It's trying to comprehend the enormity of the universe. And with this current model of science, which we call the standard model, there's a theory in human consciousness, where else could theories be conceived, that there was a moment called the Big Bang that occurred 13.8 billion years ago. Now, if you ask people, so why did it occur when it occurred, first of all? Why didn't it occur before? Why didn't it occur later? No answer. What caused the Big Bang? No answer. The first 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds, which means before time zero, 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds, there are no laws of physics. Okay. From 10 to the power of minus 33 to minus 30, 10 to the power of minus 36 to 10 to the power of minus 33, the universe tripled every trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second, from the size of a dot, a period at the end of a sentence, to the size of a grapefruit. And then it slowed down. And now the cosmic horizon is 47 billion light years away from us. And if this was not very precise mathematically, according to science, cosmic inflation, we wouldn't be sitting here. The laws of physics are fine-tuned for life, mind, and us having this conversation and this to exist. So why is that? No one knows. Why did it suddenly slow down? No one knows. And actually, we can only guess things from 400,000 years after the supposed Big Bang, because before that, there were no atoms or molecules, no atoms, no force fields as we know them. So everything we're doing right now to postulate the origins of the universe is based on mathematical calculations that go back to the cosmic wave background, which began, say, 400,000 years after the Big Bang. You asked, where did it occur? The best answer is everywhere, as you said. Everywhere doesn't sound, because the cosmic wave background is coming from every direction. So it's everywhere. When did it occur? It contained all of time, because there was no time before that. So what was there? Well, the easiest answer, science is very clever with terminology. We are all very clever with terminology. We say it had the potential for time, but there was no time. Now, there are many other problems. The universe is right now, supposedly, 70% of the universe is something called dark energy, which is expanding the space between galaxies faster than the speed of light. It's called the cosmological constant. What is this dark energy? No idea. 70%. Is the universe expanding faster than the speed of light? Yes. What is expanding? The space is expanding. It's being created. What is dark energy? It's not the same thing as Einstein's E is equal to mc squared. We don't know what it is. It's the opposite of gravity, 70%. That leaves 30% of the universe, which is remaining. Of that 27% is dark matter, which we also don't know what it is. And dark matter, we don't know what it is because it's not made of atoms. So you and I are made of atoms, and everything else you touch is made of atoms. And atoms are electromagnetic energy, so light, basically. We can only interact with things that have light. But if 27% of this remaining universe is non-atomic, there are words for it, weakly interacting, massive particles, mathematically. What they are, no one knows. Now we have 3% of the universe left, atomic. Of that, 99.9999% is invisible interstellar dust. They say probably helium and hydrogen. The visible universe, we just said 2 trillion galaxies, 706 billion stars, is 0.01% of what exists. And of that 0.01%, which is atomic, made of particles, when you don't look at particles, they disappear into waves. Particles have mass, energy, location, space-time. Waves don't have location in space-time. Where do they exist? And best answer you'll get from scientists is Hilbert space. Where is this Hilbert space? It's a mathematical space. Hilbert is a mathematician from Germany, or was. But where is it? And at this point, they'll tell you, the best scientists, shut up and calculate. You won't get a promotion. You'll never become a professor.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, if there's one answer, what the universe is made of, the answer is it's made of nothing. And then, so why does it look like this? Why does it look like you and me in this computer? That's called the hard problem. No one knows.
So just derive it from there.
Now, on the James Webb Telescope, by the way, we think we're looking out there. Okay, but what are we experiencing? Photons here, right? And then these photons are getting to the brain through an electrical impulse. And yet there's no picture of the galaxies out in here. So where is that experience happening? In the same place where this experience is happening, which is consciousness.
Question about dark matter, now that you brought it up. Since the universe keeps replicating itself, and since we are not enclosed in a form that is unaffected by all universal forces, my body, so dark matter must exist in me. And then my cellular structure, my atoms must be being forced apart constantly the way the universe is forced apart. Right? So I must be full of dark matter then.
Yes, but this is a theoretical possibility.
Yeah.
There are even cosmological constants, the observed value and the mathematical value is off by one something 10 to the power of over 100. So even the cosmological constant, the observed value and the mathematical value doesn't match. But the only reason people believe in this cosmological constant with all these unknowns is that if you apply the equations, you can create computers and algorithms and virtual reality and NFTs and whatever. It works with these theories, even though we have no idea what it is.
So then obviously,
yes, dark matter, if it didn't exist, then planets and galaxies would spiral off into interstellar space. They would disappear and you and I wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Nothing would exist.
Yeah. So then that question is, can you at all define matter? Is there a definition for matter at all except an experience in consciousness or a story we tell ourselves?
Matter is a human construct for this experience. Yeah. That's it, this experience. What is this experience? It is sensation, sound, taste, smell, texture. That's the experience. We call it, we call it SIFT. Sensations, this is a sensation. Color is a sensation. Sound is a sensation. Texture is a sensation. Smell is a sensation. Taste is a sensation. And then out of those sensations, we call it SIFT, S-I-F-T, sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. We construct the notion of matter. Because if you ask even physics, atoms, molecules, particles disappear into emptiness. So what are we doing? We are translating sensations, including when we look at the James Webb Telescope, we are translating sensations in consciousness, because images are also sensations. Okay, thoughts are also subtle sensations. We are constructing the universe as we observe it. There's no universe till you construct it. The universe is conceived, constructed, governed, and comes to existence in consciousness. What is very strange is if we didn't have this vocabulary, either mathematics or English or any other language, to convert sensations into the idea of the universe, there would be no universe.
Yeah. Yes. So where it's a question that always comes back to me is, where does creativity lie? So let me explain why. I have constantly, gradually come to the belief that, we all find simple ways to tell stories. And so if somebody asked me what's consciousness, I said consciousness is that which has forever been reimagining itself. It's an imagination of itself. And then we become tendrils of the imagination of consciousness. And then often what I think is, does creativity lie in my brain, in my mind, or am I accessing the imagination of consciousness out of which I'm drawing according to my discipline that I've trained my mind for?
Creativity does not exist in the mind. When you say, I am right, I am creating, and you do create, you're a creator. You create movies, you create stories. Humans have created stories about the universe, God, some dead white male out there, according to the Christian version. Nobody has seen a dead white male, or whatever, okay? So humans have said, there's a God that created the universe. Then there are other, now Big Bang, etc. These are all ideas. They're all creative ideas that explain experience, but they're still ideas in human consciousness. The mind is also an appearance in consciousness. Thoughts appear in consciousness, right? So the mind is not consciousness. It's modified consciousness. Thoughts are modified consciousness. Creativity is modified consciousness. I think of creativity, and that's why I like, your phrase, exists in chaos, because Nietzsche said, you must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. That's exactly what's happened. The cauldron of chaotic activity, which we have no idea what it is, gives rise to sensations, images, feelings, thoughts in human consciousness. Even a giraffe or a zebra would have no idea what this conversation is about. A giraffe or any other species doesn't even know it's called a giraffe. That's a human construct for that image, for that experience in our consciousness. So everything that we talk about, this table, this pencil, this computer, is a modified form of consciousness. Because we call it the computer, but how do we know it's a computer? Through sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, modalities of awareness. Awareness knows itself as both Deepak speaking about consciousness, talking to an entity called Shekhar, talking about something called a computer, all being processed in some domain outside of space-time. So, again, creativity, because you're a creator, I ask people, how do you define creativity? The best definition I heard from Amit Goswami, who's an Indian physicist, cosmologist, he says, creativity is a new story, a new context, a new meaning, a new set of relationships that has nothing to do with the previous story or previous context or previous relationships. It's a new wine in a new bottle. So if, for example, I have an iPhone, and I said, this is iPhone 10, this is iPhone 11, there's no difference, right? Camera is a little better. That's innovation. Innovation happens all the time. Creativity doesn't happen. I mean, you go to Bollywood movies, same stories recycled endless times. Mythology, same stories, and recycled endless times. But then once in a while, a breakthrough. Okay. New context, new meaning, new relationships, new story. And this new story has nothing to do with the previous story. It's a total breakthrough. They call it discontinuity. So creativity is very rare. It happens in music. It happens sometimes in stories, in movies. It happens in science. Somebody comes up with relativity or whatever. By the way, every theory that ever has been created has also been falsified. So, I mean, the way science progresses is through creativity, although there are some, we ride on previous theories till we describe the old theories. And the more we know, by the way, the less we have access to creativity, because our knowing precludes us. It creates what we call cognitive and perceptual constraints on what we don't know.
That's what I feel often about science and art, where science is the art of defining and is the art of defining, and art itself is the art of that it seems to define, but is provoking questions that cannot be defined. More questions. So it just goes like that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, art is the language of the soul. Creativity is the language of the mind.
Yeah.
I mean, science is the language of the mind.
Yeah.
Art is the language of the soul, because art goes beyond conceptual true art. Michelangelo or Van Gogh or these guys, they go beyond normal conceptual constraints of Picasso. See, you think this thing shouldn't look like it does, but it does something to you.
Because I often wonder, when Newton's apple that fell on the ground,
Right.
and I go into the apple and I think two sentient beings in the apple, in their consciousness,
Right.
and two sentient beings on Earth.
Yeah.
Two sentient beings must be saying, why is the Earth coming towards us?
Right.
Yeah. So I think, so we made the assumption about gravity, so it's falling on the Earth. On the other side, they're saying, oh my God, the Earth is falling upon us, says the apple.
Absolutely. And again, it's a perspective. Now, Newtonian science helped us get to the moon. You didn't need quantum mechanics or relativity to go get to the moon. It worked, but it was wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the gravity as defined today is the curvature of space-time. Now, please try to imagine the curvature of space-time. It's a non-imaginable experience, and it is called gravity. Okay. Now, if there was no gravity, there would be no spinning of the Earth. The Earth wouldn't be going around the sun or whatever, and the universe wouldn't be expanding, or nothing would exist if there was no gravity. Now we have an equation, curvature of space-time. We can't even imagine what the curvature of space-time. It's an equation. Where is the equation? In mathematics. Where's mathematics? In human consciousness. This is also one of the biggest puzzles. Why is mathematics so unreasonably effective? We create algorithms, we use this, everything is, you can mathematically map the whole body, every activity. What is this math that actually we can program computers, create algorithms? Why is it so effective? Where does mathematics exist? Is it intrinsic to the universe? Is it in human consciousness? Nobody knows. And even in mathematics, by the way, there is a theorem called Gödel's theorem, where the theorem is not supposed to exist. So Gödel, the German mathematician, was contemporary of Einstein. He called it a discontinuity. The mathematician gets this theorem, but can't understand where it came from because it's not an algorithm. The previous theorem doesn't lead through algorithmic logic to the present theorem. It just shows up in consciousness. Now you can proceed with the algorithm. If you don't accept this theorem, then you can't even proceed with the algorithm. So where does these theorems come from? That movie that we saw recently with Dev Patel.
The man who saw infinity.
Yeah, Ramanujan. Yeah. And when the greatest mathematicians, Hardy and all of the time, said, where do you get them? He said, I get them from the goddess. And they thought he was crazy.
Because he couldn't prove it.
He couldn't prove it.
According to the normal things.
But according to Gödel's law, if you don't have these unprovable theorems, mathematics would fall apart. So actually, Gödel's theorem says there are theorems that are true but cannot be proved. That's now accepted. And so these theorems must come from some discontinuity in a non-local domain.
I was just wondering this morning, about space, curvature of space-time. Because if you look at films, look at gravity, so the people who suddenly let go, they will travel endlessly through time and space. Right? That's what they say. Time and space in a straight line.
In a straight line,
right?
Yeah.
But if space-time is curved, then it cannot be curved in one massive distance somewhere. It must be curved, within curved, within curved, within curved. So when I am shot out, I must be curving all the time in space-time. So then distance is a concept that will destroy itself in my own head.
It's incomprehensible. Yes, it's incomprehensible. It is incomprehensible. It is unimaginable.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally infinite. Infinite is incomprehensible, but without the infinite, there's no explanation for the finite. Finite is a modified form of the infinite, but the infinite is incomprehensible. So again, Vedanta says, if you can see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, think about it, imagine it, conceptualize it, it's not real. What is real is the incomprehensible, without which there's no comprehensibility.
Yeah. And because I like telling stories, I just say to myself, consciousness is a question that is constantly asking itself. And you are the result of that question.
Yes, the question is the only important thing.
Yeah.
The question contains the answer, but all answers are fundamentally magical lies. All,
Yeah.
my perception tells me the earth is flat. Nobody believes that. My perception tells me the ground we are standing on is stationary. We know it's spinning at dizzying speeds and hurtling through space at thousands of miles an hour. My perception tells me Shekhar is there. I am here. But if you're both in empty space, then there's no distance between us. So this whole thing is called Maya, right? And then the play of Maya is Leela.
Yeah.
And actually the Vedantists got it, because they said ultimately logic will fail. The last niyama is called Ishwar Pranidhana, surrender to the mystery. You can't solve it. Or play golf, which is, mystery for Republicans. For Mr. Trump, that's mystery school. And so Ishwar Pranidhana, because it's all Maya, it's all Leela. The whole thing is a play of creativity.
Yeah. In mythology, we try and address it. I mean, that wonderful, one of our favorite stories about Krishna is that he came with mud in his mouth.
That's right.
And so grains of sand.
Yeah.
And his mother said, open your mouth so I can take the mud out. And Krishna opened the mouth, and she saw infinity.
And the whole universe.
Yeah, and the whole universe, which I suspect it's multiverse or whatever it is. She saw the idea of forever.
Yeah. And right now, that's the most prevailing, there used to be a theory. Quantum mechanics said mathematics works no matter what. But there are 35 or so theories about what it means. The most popular interpretation is to be Copenhagen interpretation, but right now it's the multiverse, or even multi-universe, which means there are infinite universes and infinite versions of you and me. This is Caltech professor, what's his name, Sean Carroll's latest book, Something Deeply Hidden. Of course, people argue about this. And these multiverses could be in different dimensions of space-time.
And linearity is constructed out of
misperception. And linearity is a magical lie, another magical lie.
And therefore time is a magical lie.
Time is every perception is a lie. Every thought is a magical lie. Everything you can think of is a magical lie.
Well, a lot to think
about.
A
lot to think about. And, Shekhar, what's your latest project? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I'm just releasing at Toronto Film Festival's opening with the film that I made during COVID. People were dying in ambulances. I was making a movie. It's called What's Love Got to Do with It? It's got Emma Thompson and this hot new young girl called Lily James, and also Shabana Azmi, and also one of Pakistan's biggest stars. So it's like
what's love got to do?
Yeah.
Love has to do with everything. Everything is a love story.
Yeah, well, that's the conclusion it comes to. That really is the conclusion it comes to.
Love is the only thing that's not a magical lie.
So what interested me in that was all the dating apps. So this young girl is so addicted to dating apps. And so I thought, well, what is love? And, do you find love through dating apps? Do you find intimacy through dating apps? And intimacy is a very interesting question for us, because when you're born, you're intimate with your mother's chest and breast, and then you're taken away. And then all your life you're taught not to be intimate. You can't hold somebody's hand without saying, hey, it's any kind of intimacy is now perceived as being sexual. So if in dating apps, because basically if you're looking for love, you're looking for intimacy. Mm-hmm. And so dating apps are giving you the false impression that actually you're going to have sex, and out of sex, okay, sex is happy and wonderful and joyful, hopefully. and then you find love. But you're not, you're looking for intimacy. And the idea of love and intimacy is something that you were wrenched away from when you were born, because modern life is constantly teaching you that to be intimate, and it becomes when somebody dies, that's what they want to do. They want to hold somebody's hand. You're looking for intimacy. So there's a lot of things in that film.
Intimacy and innocence are the same thing, I think.
Yeah.
We have sacrificed intimacy and innocence for magical lives.
Yeah.
Well, I think that little sound in our consciousness is telling us time to wrap up.
Okay.
Well, guys, loss of intimacy
Yeah.
is loss of innocence. We sacrifice the divine for the magical lies of space-time and causality.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shekhar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.